The morning sun filtered through the tall windows of the Providence Municipal Court, casting a golden glow across the polished wooden benches. It was another busy day for Judge Frank Caprio, whose courtroom had become famous across America, not just for justice, but for compassion. The hum of quiet conversation filled the air as people waited for their names to be called. Some looked nervous, clutching tickets and papers, while others whispered stories about the kind-hearted judge who often forgave fines when life had been unkind. But that day, the calm atmosphere was about to be shaken by a storm that no one expected. The heavy wooden doors suddenly swung open, drawing everyone's attention. A woman in her mid-40s marched in, heels clacking sharply on the floor. She wore oversized sunglasses even though the courtroom was dimly lit. Her lips were pursed in irritation, and her whole posture screamed defiance. Her name was Melissa Turner, a small business owner who, by her own words, had no patience for bureaucrats and their petty rules. She had received 3 parking tickets and 1 speeding citation over the past month. Each one, she believed, was undeserved. Melissa didn't take a seat like others waiting for their turn. She walked straight to the front row, muttering under her breath about how the system was a scam. Her irritation was palpable, almost contagious. The court clerk, used to the occasional difficult visitor, politely asked her to wait for her case to be called. "I don't have all day," she snapped, crossing her arms. The clerk gave a tight smile and said, "It won't be long, ma'am." Moments later, the bailiff called her name. Case of Melissa Turner versus the City of Providence. The courtroom quieted down immediately. All eyes turned toward her as she strutted to the stand, chin raised high. Judge Caprio looked up from his papers and offered his trademark warm smile. "Good morning, Ms. Turner," he greeted kindly. "How are you today?" Melissa didn't return the smile. "Not good." Judge Caprio adjusted his glasses and gave a patient nod, his calm demeanor never faltering despite Melissa's sharp tone. The entire courtroom seemed to hold its breath. Those familiar with Caprio's compassionate style knew he would handle this with grace, but even they weren't sure how he'd respond to someone so confrontational right from the start. He flipped through the file in front of him. "Ms. Turner," he began in his gentle, measured voice, "you've been cited for 3 parking violations and 1 speeding ticket, all within the last month. Would you like to explain what happened?" Melissa exhaled loudly, rolling her eyes so dramatically that even the bailiff stiffened. "Explain what?" "That your officers have nothing better to do than pick on people like me. I work 12-hour days trying to keep my store afloat, and every week there's a new ticket waiting on my windshield." The judge nodded thoughtfully, not interrupting. "I understand that running a business can be stressful. Could you tell me where you were parked on these occasions?" "Oh, please," she scoffed, waving her hand dismissively. "Don't act like you care. This whole city's just a money machine. You people write tickets like your lives depend on it." A quiet murmur spread through the spectators. No one had ever seen someone speak to Judge Caprio that way. Yet, the judge remained composed, his expression soft but firm. "Ms. Turner, I assure you, no one here wants to cause you unnecessary trouble. We only enforce the." The tension inside the courtroom grew thicker with every passing second. Melissa's temper was like a fire that had just found oxygen, and Judge Caprio, known for his unmatched patience, was now standing right in front of the storm. He could feel the room's energy change. The audience shifted uncomfortably in their seats, and the bailiff, ever alert, subtly stepped closer in case things got out of hand. But Caprio's calm presence seemed to balance the chaos. He leaned slightly forward, his voice as steady and gentle as ever. "Ms. Turner," he began, "I understand this situation has been frustrating for you, but we're here to handle it in an orderly way. I promise, you'll have every chance to explain yourself." Melissa's response came sharp and loud. "Explain myself? To who?" "To you." She jabbed her finger toward him, her tone full of sarcasm. "You're just going to read off your little script, find me like everyone else, and pretend you're doing justice." There were audible gasps from the spectators. A young man in the back whispered, "Oh no, she didn't just say that to Judge Caprio," but Caprio didn't flinch. He simply nodded, his expression thoughtful rather than offended. "I'm sorry that's how you feel," he replied. "But I assure you, I don't hand out justice from a script." His calm tone only seemed to irritate her more. "Oh, please spare me the TV judge routine," Melissa scoffed. I know who you are. Everyone online thinks you're some saint of the courtroom, but let's be real, you're just part of the same system that bleeds people dry. The bailiff's jaw tightened, but Caprio lifted his hand gently, a quiet signal not to intervene. He'd seen anger like this before. Anger that wasn't just about tickets or fines, but about something deeper, heavier, and often painful. Still, the courtroom wasn't a place where rage could run free. He spoke again, softer now. Ms. Turner, you seem upset not just about the tickets but about something larger. Why don't we take a moment, breathe, and start from the beginning? Tell me what happened. Melissa laughed bitterly. Oh, now you want to listen. She slammed her handbag onto the desk so hard that it echoed through the room. You judges are all the same. Pretend to care, but you've already decided what you're going to do. Caprio clasped his hands together. I don't decide before hearing the story. That's why we're here, to listen. But Melissa was no. Melissa's voice trembled with fury as she leaned closer to the bench, her face flushed red. You people are corrupt, she spat out. You sit there in your fancy robes acting like gods, but you don't know what it's like for the rest of us. You're nothing but actors in a courtroom show. A ripple of shock moved through the courtroom. The people seated in the benches exchanged uneasy glances, and someone even gasped softly. Nobody had ever seen someone speak to Judge Caprio like that before. Most defendants entered his courtroom nervous but respectful, aware that the man behind the bench had built a reputation for kindness and empathy. But Melissa seemed. For a long, tense moment, the courtroom was frozen. Melissa stood trembling, her chest rising and falling as if each breath was a battle. Her outburst had left a heavy silence in its wake. The courtroom clerk looked at the judge nervously, unsure what would happen next. The bailiff subtly shifted his stance, ready in case things escalated further. But Judge Caprio, calm as ever, didn't move a muscle. He simply looked at her with the same steady patience that had made him a symbol of fairness across the country. His hands rested lightly on the bench, and when he finally spoke, his tone was quiet but carried the full weight of authority. Are you done, Ms. Turner? The simplicity of the question caught her off guard. Her mouth opened as if to snap back, but nothing came out. Instead, she blinked, taken aback by his composure. You heard me, she said finally, crossing her arms defensively. I've said what I needed to say. Judge Caprio nodded slowly, still calm, still kind. All right, he said softly. Now that you've said what's on your mind, I'd like to ask you something. Why are you really angry? Melissa frowned. What kind of question is that? I just told you. You people keep ticketing me for no reason. But Caprio gently raised a hand, stopping her mid-sentence. No, he said quietly, that's not what I asked. You're not angry about the tickets. You're angry about something else. Something bigger. I can see it in your eyes. The room went silent again. Even the clerk, who had been nervously shuffling papers, stopped moving. Melissa's mouth opened, then closed. For the first time, she didn't have a quick comeback. She turned away, muttering, You don't know anything about me. Caprio's voice remained steady. That may be true, he said, but I know pain when I see it. I've been doing this for a long time, Ms. Turner. People don't curse at judges because of parking tickets. They do it because life's been unfair to them in ways that have nothing to do with the law. Melissa's jaw tightened. You think you're some kind of psychologist now. She snapped, but her tone had softened slightly. Less rage, more exhaustion. I think I'm someone who's seen too many people break under the weight of their troubles, Caprio replied. Some shout, some cry, some shut down. You shout. Her eyes flickered, a brief spark of vulnerability showing through the anger. But she quickly turned away again, trying to hold on to her pride. You don't get it, she said under her breath. Caprio leaned forward. Then help me understand. That line hung in the air for a moment. Everyone could feel the shift. His voice wasn't demanding, it was inviting. Melissa's hands trembled slightly on the table. She tried to collect herself, brushing away a strand of hair that had fallen into her face. You really want to know? She said finally, her voice lower now. Yes, Caprio answered. I do. She hesitated, staring down at the floor. The courtroom watched as the walls she had built around herself began to crack. I've been dealing with a lot, she said quietly. My business is struggling. My husband left last year. And my son. Her voice broke. She stopped mid-sentence, pressing her lips together to stop them from trembling. My son's been in the hospital, she whispered. For months. I've been driving back and forth every day, trying to hold everything together. And every time I park to rush in and see him, there's another ticket waiting on my car. It pushed me over the edge. No one in the room spoke. Even the sound of the clock ticking seemed to fade away. Caprio's expression softened further. Now the truth made sense. The anger, the defensiveness, the explosion, it wasn't defiance. It was pain disguised as fury. He nodded slowly, his voice barely above a whisper. Now I understand, he said. Thank you for telling me, Ms. Turner. Melissa's shoulders slumped. Her face, once hard with anger, now looked fragile and tired. She wiped at her eyes with the back of her hand, whispering, I didn't mean to, I just couldn't take it anymore. Judge Caprio leaned back in his chair, sighing quietly. It's all right, he said gently. You've carried more than most could bear. Let's see what we can do to make things a little lighter for you today. And for the first time since she'd entered the courtroom, Melissa didn't look like a fighter, she looked like someone finally ready to be heard.